I will now call to order the Enhanced Law Enforcement District Budget Committee. Will the members of the Budget Committee please introduce themselves? Commissioner Shaw.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Mark Shaw.
Commissioner Sonia Fisher.
Thank you, Chair
I am
Smith.
Chair Tootie Smith.
Commissioner Martha Schrader.
I'm Michael Wilson.
Gavin Carpenter.
Is that it?
That's
For
it.
today? Okay. I will now open the floor for nominations for chair.
I nominate Michael Wilson as chair.
I second that.
A motion has been made to nominate Michael Wilson for chair. It has been seconded. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the poll?
Yes, Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Savas. Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader. Chair Smith.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Michael Wilson has been elected as our chair, and I now turn the meeting over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. We'll now call for nominations for secretary. I nominate Gavin Carpenter.
I second.
Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Call a roll, please.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas. Mr. Carpenter,
Yes, aye.
Commissioner Shaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader. Chair Smith,
Aye.
Chair Wilson.
Aye. Okay. We're all set then.
I guess I'm supposed to say that
No, Chair
the
Wilson.
secretary has been elected.
Thank you. I'll now recognize Sheriff Angela Brandenburg for her presentation.
Good afternoon, Sheriff Angela Brandenburg. I'm here. I'm also here with Captain Brad O'Neill, who is our patrol commander and over ELED, and our finance manager, Nancy Artman. So voters approved the Clackamas County Enhanced Law Enforcement District, or the ELED, on November 8th, 1994, and they began levying taxes July 1st, 1995. The permanent tax rate of .7198 per thousand assessed value is used to levy taxes on properties lying within district boundaries. The goal of the ELED was to provide an improved level of patrol services in the unincorporated areas of Clackamas County within the metropolitan urban growth boundary, including the cities of Happy Valley and Johnson City. On July 1st of 2003, the city of Happy Valley opted out of the district after passing a law enforcement local option tax. In keeping with the goal of the district to provide additional patrol services within the boundaries of the district, Happy Valley contracts for full-time law enforcement services with the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. The Clackamas County Sheriff's Office provides the personnel for Happy Valley's Police Department. The fiscal year 22-23 budget is built to support 36 sworn positions. This is the same staffing level as fiscal year 21-22. One full-time deputy was added to the ELED staff in fiscal years 14-15, 17-18, 18-19. Additionally, the budget supports the materials and services costs for the 36 positions. These include uniforms, radio support, and dispatch services. The ELED's projected tax revenue for fiscal year 22-23 is $8,107,422. This represents a $226,982 increase, or 2.9%, from the prior fiscal year's budgeted revenue of $7,880,440. With the $84,619 in projected beginning fund balance, the proposed fiscal year 22-23 ELED budget is $8,248,041. The primary budgeted items for the ELED are $7,938,041 to fund personnel costs for 36 positions. And those are 29 deputies, 6 sergeants, and 1 lieutenant. This figure, an increase of 1.40% from fiscal year 21-22, includes salary, fringe benefits, overtime, holiday pay, and workers' compensation costs. $347,647 for professional services, which constitutes the ELED share of the cost for dispatching services provided by CCOM, and $181,540 in building note principal and interest for the North Station building. This is an increase of 1.20% from the prior fiscal year of $179,370. My office is committed to remaining a good steward of the ELED funds. These resources will be used to achieve the district's goal relating to emergency response, full-service law enforcement, and neighborhood quality of life. With that, I will turn it over to Captain O'Neill. Oh, actually, it's me, isn't it? Okay. We practiced this thoroughly. Apparently, I wasn't paying attention. I want to go over some highlights of our 2021 major accomplishments for the ELED. And that is, we successfully implemented a body-worn camera program to increase officer safety, strengthen evidence for cases, and increase trust and transparency within our community. We also, this year, added an online reporting platform as another option for the public to report low-level crimes. Again, that's an option. It's not a requirement for folks. And then we also published a public-facing dashboards to provide timely information on calls for service within the ELED and other parts of our service areas. But specifically, we've heard past years not enough information about specific calls for service within the ELED, and that should eliminate that. Now I'll turn it over to Captain O'Neill.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good afternoon, Captain Brad O'Neill, Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. Thank you for having me here. We're going to take a look at some of our performance Clackamas measures. As we go through this, one of the questions I always get is in regards to the last part, priority 1 and 2 calls. What does that mean? We have several different priorities of calls. We have to prioritize those. Priority 1s and 2s are the most extreme. The most high risk, immediate response needed to those calls. Those typically need more than just one deputy to respond to. So when we're looking at some of those numbers, some of the delays in response can be waiting for another deputy to back you up on that call. Whereas some of the lower priority calls, one deputy can go out and handle that on their own. Program profiles. This budget is part of the Board of County Commissioners Strategic Priority Area Number 4, ensure safe and healthy and secure communities. Total funds for this program, $8,248,041. 0% of this money comes from the county. It is a restricted fund. It's all funded through the ELED.
Good afternoon. Again, for the record, my name is Nancy Artman. I am the Sheriff's Finance Manager. I'd like to present to you an overview of the revenue and expenses for fiscal year 22-23. On the revenue side, all other revenue resources is the interest earned. Beginning fund balance is the beginning fund balance, which is restricted to the district. The federal, state, local, and other gifts and donations is payments in lieu of tax. And then there is the tax base, which makes up the majority of the ELED's revenue. The payments in lieu of tax are funds that come from the federal government to help offset revenue loss to districts and local governments that have a portion of federal land that is not taxable. So this offsets a little bit of that lost revenue. On the expense side, one notation, I apologize, this is an amended slide to what we submitted. Still, it'll be the same virtually proportionately, but capital outlay and debt service should each be 2% rather than 4% for capital outlay. And then the materials and services remains at 96%. In materials and services, you'll see personnel as contracted professional services. That is why you don't see professional services here, or personal services rather, here in the ELED. It's part of the operations budget as it has been each year. I'd like to point out that the debt service is scheduled to be paid off in fiscal year '26. That will provide the ELED with some opportunities. We're looking very closely at the tax base versus the costs. This is something that we have spoke to you during policy sessions and have mentioned as an aside, that the ELED revenue presents a little bit of concern in that it's not keeping pace with expense. And that's because this rate was set in 1994, and as a taxing district, it doesn't change, but our expenses go up, and that is proportionate and the same to all other expense within the county. But this will provide us an opportunity to refocus those funds and to use them to offset some of that personnel cost. Now turning to the more detailed slide, a summary of revenue and expense. As you can see, there aren't any significant changes proposed for the ELED. We have a minimal beginning fund balance. Taxes are estimated at 3%. We want to be conservative with our collections number, and that will keep more or less on pace with where we anticipate to end this year. The federal, state, and local other, as I mentioned, that is the payments in lieu of tax. That is not really a large revenue source. We're keeping that consistent with fiscal year 22 rather, at $6,000. And the all other revenue sources is the interest, which I mentioned. So that combined with our beginning fund balance is a proposed budget of a little more than 8.2 million, about a 3% increase. On the expense side, on the materials and services, again, that is why you see that at 7.9 million. That is because the personal services are included. That is not all goods and services, but it does include the ELED's share of uniform costs, CCOM, C800 radio, all of the pieces that it takes to run the district. It shares in those costs. And as you'll see this year, for fiscal year 22 and for fiscal year 23, we're also programming in a cost of fleet. And that's what you see posted in capital outlay. What we're really trying to accomplish this current fiscal year is to get a sense of what is it that the ELED can absorb cost-wise. And we'll be working very closely with the advisory committee, of which both the chair and secretary today are members of as well, and to discuss the revenue comparison versus the expense. So we're monitoring that very closely. We're going to ensure that the ELED is charged a full share this year. And again, in just forecasting out for the upcoming years, since debt service will be paid off in the next 2 fiscal years when we come back before you, I believe that we will have a net zero and won't be in a situation where we'll need to be making any changes. And that's something that we will definitely come and discuss, well, the sheriff rather, will discuss with you. And I'll be discussing, I think not. I'll be discussing with Captain O'Neill and with the ELED Advisory Committee. And then lastly, there is that cost for debt service. You'll see that will remain consistent in the next 2 budgets that we'll bring before you for the ELED. And then lastly, this is just a summary slide to show you the overall budget being requested. It is an increase of $240,000, approximately 3%. I'm happy to entertain any questions you might have regarding the budget.
So I have one. So I'm looking at the website because there's no map in here to show where the boundaries of the district are. So I'm a little bit confused because the map here on your website currently shows Happy Valley not being in ELED. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So how does the district get compromised with the annexations of Happy Valley to the east? Or period? Is that to the west of Happy Valley where part of the district might be gobbled up that the concern is? I'm trying to understand that fully.
Right, so it would be the opposite direction. The annexation is more historical and something that we wanted to bring to your attention, but yes, it could be that could possibly move in the other direction. Happy Valley continues to grow and expand. They're experiencing robust growth in their community, and it's something that it becomes a real challenge for the ELED.
Right, because we've noted, we're watching closely where the growth in Happy Valley is occurring, and that seems to be on the eastern edges, right? So it's not really encroaching into the district. So the other question I have, with that as the basis, is that what is the contract, the city contract for services with the sheriff's office worth in dollars annually?
That's an excellent question. For Happy Valley, I'd have to look that up for you, Commissioner. I'd be happy to give you that figure. I don't want to just pull that out of a hat right now, but it's several $1 million.
Is it beyond 8 million?
I believe for Happy Valley, it's right about that mark this year. Actually, if you'll excuse me.
Sure.
I could perhaps.
And I'm also curious about the population of the enhanced law enforcement district. Do we have that number? The population you're serving within the boundaries? I say this because the district by state law is basically its own entity. It's supposed to be autonomous and treated autonomously. And its mission should be crystal clear, and its mission should be pursued. And it was basically sold to the voters, if you will, for that enhanced above the baseline. And so I'm just trying to, as I read through the report here a few weeks ago that Sheriff Brandenburg presented on, the staffing report, if you will, that was the name of it?
Staffing study.
Yeah, staffing study. I was quite intrigued by the calling out the cities, the two cities, and then the rest of the rest of the county separately as its proactivity rate, for example, the ability to serve and go beyond, just, responding. So I'm just kind of concerned how anyone gauges the level of enhanced law enforcement within the county outside the cities on a dollar for dollar value. I'm getting an increasing, and I say this because I am overwhelmed without fail with people within the enhanced law enforcement district with calls for service or concerns about calls for service, increasing crime, and I'm not hearing far less from that from areas like Wilsonville and areas like Happy Valley. And so, how do we convey or examine the value we're getting for that dollar amount that they're paying, that $8 million?
Right, and so let me go back first to the proposed budget. So I was giving you closer to what Wilsonville's number was. So for Happy Valley, their projected budget was 4.2 million. This year's projected budget is 4.4. And in terms of, I think I heard two different things, Commissioner. I wanted to address them both. So one of the questions was related to the ELED and service. Is that correct? And how is that measured?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to extrapolate what the cost that the citizens within LED are paying, and the value for that. And comparing it to a city could be one measure.
Sure.
But
Sure. So we have to look beyond the staffing that just is within the district, and this holds true for the cities as well, because the benefit that they are receiving, so now speaking directly to the district, is all the additional services that aren't paid. So by that I mean, if there is something that is happening within the district, and we've noticed, if you look, the sheriff has done a wonderful job making sure that we have a robust dashboard of data on our website. If you were to look at those hotspots, a lot of them are within the district. And so for those calls, you're having deputies respond, sergeants respond that are funded from outside the district. So they could be levy funded, they could be general fund funded, they could be other source funded, but they are all going to respond when there is a need. You also have services that are beyond that scope in terms of investigations. So you have detectives. The SWAT team that comes out is not something that the district pays for. So they are receiving many, many enhancements to what they're paying for in that rate, which is also the same for the cities. So they reimburse us basically to lease a police force, if you will, and they receive those same benefits. So they get the benefit of a full records department. They get the benefit of investigations. They get the benefit of all of those specialized services that we've had years to develop. And that is done for the cities. It is done at a cost. They do pay a share into it, but they certainly don't pay a full amount. Now, there are a couple of cities who do have their own detective assigned, but that individual isn't one who might have a child abuse focus or might have, the need of our interagency drug force. So there are definitely always different aspects that are being provided in terms of service over and above what was intended with the rate that was paid and establishing extra patrols.
Okay, well, thank you. If tomorrow you could just bring maybe the population numbers for
The district.
ELED and then the contract amounts for the city of Wilsonville and the city of Happy Valley, I'd appreciate it.
Certainly, and I can give you those figures definitely tomorrow. I'll have that all rolled up for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. The services of the jail, are they factored into this, or are they just lumped in with the overall operation of the sheriff's department?
That's a very good question. That is another service that is provided as a basis from the sheriff's office. So it's not something that is specific to the ELED or something that they're paying more to receive, but a service that the sheriff's office provides.
Right, and there's no other jails
Correct.
within the county, so the
Correct.
sheriff is absorbing all of that from Milwaukee, from Gladstone, from all of those. They all come through the sheriff's jail.
That's accurate.
Commissioner Scholl, did you have a question?
No, I just read the answer. My question was about the FTEs, and I see here you're invoiced. You reimbursed the sheriff's department
Correct.
from the numbers on your material and services line, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, yeah, good.
Captain, over on page 4 of your presentation, there's something there called metrics, percent target, meet, exceed, or improve. What is that?
So that has to do with the percentage of success we have in meeting our actual target from the responding to priority 1s and 2 calls within 5 minutes. So we're 86% of meeting our target.
The target is 100%?
No, the target is the goal of 50%
Okay.
response time.
That slide is a little bit confusing, and that is the percent change that's reported. So that isn't actually the percent or the meeting.
I'm getting a message that maybe somebody's microphone isn't on. There you go.
Who might that be?
Oh, it's usually me, but you can go ahead.
Thank you. So to reiterate, that slide is a little bit confusing because it's the percent of meeting or change, not necessarily the percent of meeting the actual goal itself.
Okay. And over on page 2, successful implementation of body-worn cameras.
Yes.
All of the officers now have cameras?
Well, so almost all of them do. We had our first batch of 100 rolled out a couple months ago, and we've just recently received the rest of those body-worn cameras. So we're in the process of getting those rolled out to those that don't have them.
And what are the guidelines for turning them on or keeping them on?
We have policies and procedures in place that talk about any enforcement action within the community. You're required to have that on. And then any other time that the deputy feels that it would be helpful to turn that body camera on.
So it's up to the deputy then to determine whether or not he's going to have it turned on?
So
Do
I
you
can,
want
I
to-
can speak
go
to
ahead.
that. So it's, the state law is very prescriptive about body-worn cameras. So if you look at our policy and frequently asked questions on our website, it's prescripted by law. So if they're having contact with you, it's going to be on, it's continuous operation, very prescriptive, so we follow that.
Okay. A question on the body-worn camera. Captain O'Neill, you had a great line when you were talking about it, that the deputies were fighting over who gets to the first batch of 100. And I've been explaining that to everybody in our community about the reasons for that. One of the big ones you said was just to reduce the administrative paperwork of being accused of something and being able to clear it up right away rather than spending 3 hours behind a computer typing a report. Have you noticed any drop down in that sort of administrative work that's gone to deputies that have been accused of something? The body cameras have alleviated it all?
There's been a little bit,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just helps with the transparency of law enforcement in the
Yeah.
community nowadays.
Yeah, okay.
So all the deputies that are working with the ELD are wearing these cameras now?
If they're not right now, they will be shortly, is when we roll these next batch out.
We have prioritized patrol deputies, especially in the districts of the ELED, which is our busiest districts. So I know that we're rolling out to Marine and some other units. So we really prioritize patrol, which would be covering ELED.
And on page 3, percent of reported property crimes, you had a target, of course, of 0%, and in fiscal year '21, it was 11.5%, and the actual in fiscal year, or calendar year '20 was 5.4. Do you anything you contribute to why that increased? Was that COVID related, people staying home, or what?
You know, it's hard to say why certain things increase. Or we see crimes go up and go down. Typically, it's cyclical throughout the year, depending on activities, holidays, school being in, being out, summertime, nice weather, bad weather. So there's really nothing I can really put my finger on as far as why that's showing a more of an increase, but.
Okay, so these percentages here are only for the ELED.
Correct.
How do they measure up with the rest of your services that you provide outside of the ELED? Are they the same? Are they close? Or are we having more of a problem in the enhanced law enforcement district?
I think it's pretty well on track with the rest of the county. So it's pretty consistent. But we have our dashboards where you can get in there and take a look at the calls. Pretty soon we'll have our next mission, and it should be out shortly, is our actual crimes reported, because that's very important for folks to be able to take a look in your own neighborhood or across districts or certain times of the day, certain periods. So that should be pretty helpful.
Okay.
Chair Wilson, we are actually out of time, and we still have to do a public hearing, so may we respectfully move on, please?
I do have one question that's on this percentage thing that I want to ask. Well, actually, I think there's a flaw here in the way this is crafted. So going to that chart, 5.4 was the actual, the target was 0, so it went up 5.4, right? So here, went up 5.4, and then the target for the next year was 0, and it went up 11.5 on top of the 5.4. That's 16.5. It seems the target ought to be minus 16.5 or minus, because we're just moving, we're instead of lowering the bar, opposite of my directions of my hands, we're actually having a greater acceptance of a higher crime rate or calls for service rate.
So these measures, and we measure our the percentage change by quarter. And then we average those throughout the year, or we compare the ups and downs of that. And that's where the 5.4% and the 11.5% come in. Going back to the actual dashboards, you can actually get into these measures of the percentages are confusing and really hard to understand. I had to ask like probably 3 times to understand it myself. But going in and looking at the actual data of numbers will help us get a better picture of what's actually being reported and what's actually going on.
Yeah, well, the area of the district happens to be in Clackamas County, the area of the highest calls for service, the highest crime rates for the most part in general. And the calls for service are going up every year. I look at your numbers. And this graph and the acceptance of this metric is an acceptance of the graph going upwards, so the calls for service. So that's why I think it needs to be designed so that you're reducing, showing a demonstration that you're trying to reduce the crime. It's counterintuitive to what the district's all about. Just saying.
I'm going to ask Mr. Wilson if he would move this along. We are already late for our next presentation.
Thank you. We're open for public hearing and receive public testimony. Anyone wishing to testify should begin giving their name and address for the record. Are there anyone here that wants to testify? There being no one here to testify, Chair will close the public hearing.
Is there any online?
You have to ask online, please. Caroline, anyone online?
Yes, Tony, do we have anybody registered to speak?
Chair, I do not have anyone pre-registered to speak. If there is anyone who would like to testify, please use the raise hand feature, and I will call on you in the order received. Chair, I do not have any hands raised.
Is there anybody? No one?
No one else, no.
No, well, then, public hearing is closed. Any committee members have any other questions, items for discussion? Call for a motion to approve the budget.
I move that the committee approve the FY 2022-2023 budget for the Enhanced Law Enforcement District as presented and impose the maximum permanent tax rate of $0.7198 per thousand of assessed value within the district boundaries, period.
Second.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Last call. Any discussion? Call for the vote. It has been moved and seconded that the budget be approved. All in favor say aye.
We need a poll the vote, excuse me, sir.
Sure.
Go ahead, Caroline.
Okay, this is Commissioner Fisher.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye.
Chair Wilson.
Aye. Any opposed? No one. The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Any other business?
Chair Wilson, I would like to just make one more comment for the record.
Sure.
I will keep it brief because I understand we're running low on time. This goes back to Commissioner Savas's question regarding benefit. We spoke about body-worn cameras. I also wanted to underscore that this is a benefit that the ELAD receives without any cost. The sheriff was successful in passing a new public safety local option levy, which incurs the entire cost for that body-worn camera program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further business before the committee, hearing none, this committee is adjourned.